It's always good to hear from Carl when he says he's ready, and we are live, which is always good. How's your day been, buddy? Good?
Oh, not bad, yeah. Just get the warm today.
Mate, it's interesting that you're saying that it's warm, because I had to laugh because while we're going into summer here, some of the guys that I know on social media in North America are getting into winter, and it's frosty. They've had their first frost, which is unusual for this time of year.
So early.
Yeah. So look, we don't have a lot of people in the chat, but I'm going to do a shout out to Sean Zinnerman. Awesome, Sean. Good to see you. I always bang into Sean and other YouTube groups. And I'm going to do a shout out to a very good friend of ours, R2, R3 Locking Nut. Yeah, R2, R3 Locking Nut.
Yeah. Heard that name a few times.
He's the man. And Arvin's jumped in. G'day, Arvin. Thank you. Jimmy T's jumped in. If I get a chance tonight, I'll give you guys an update on my Keith caster. It didn't go well. I'll let you guys know what's happening there. So the topic of tonight's show is, can you guys see that? Ladies and gentlemen, the Rolling Stones, the 1972 tour. So I suppose for a lot of Stones nuts, the 72 tour, as I said in the description, was probably the tour that set the benchmark for all the great tours that went right through the 70s. That's my opinion anyway. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later on. So if you've got anything by way of an introduction, Carl, I'd love to hear it.
Oh, yeah, no, just 72 tour, to me, like you were saying, was like anything successful just keeps getting, I guess, bigger and better. We got to see the Stones with a bigger band, bigger shows, a lot more confident. PA systems were the norm. They were pretty new in 69. So it's just a different level in a way. Even though I've got a soft spot for 69, the 72 tour was cemented them, like you said, in a, what's the word? A stadium level, I guess.
I think because we're Stones nuts, it's fair to say that we can categorise and isolate each tour, and certainly we're not choosing one tour over the other, because that 69 tour certainly, and we'll have a show on that, broke a lot of boundaries. But the 72 tour is obviously a continuation of the Exile and Mainstream album, because that's the tour that got them back into making some money, didn't it?
Yeah. It's interesting. We spoke about this last week. Like Charlie said, if America loves you, you've made it. They always start their tours in America, and man, they're big tours, because it continues on from America to Canada to Europe. We heard about that great bootleg, the Brussels DVD, which they say is one of the best live recordings they've ever done. And not forget them coming down under. Some of their best music was, I've got a bootleg live in Perth, 73. It's almost a 2-year tour. They were in Australia and New Zealand in 73. So we're talking, wow, a lot of people, a lot of shows.
Yeah, interesting that, I suppose we shouldn't be surprised that Keith, in his biography, called the 72 tour the Cocaine and Tequila Sunrise Tour. Again, I have to do a shout out. If anybody's watching this show and hasn't read Keith's biography, they certainly need to check that out, because That's the man telling it as it is. Be careful though, because in my research over the last few years, there are some dodgy books out there, and there's some good stuff. So be careful. I know this book recently doesn't get a lot of love, and I don't know why. But if you read it in context, I think it's going to answer a lot of questions about the time and that period. And it's this book here, Carl.
Is it Robert Greenfield or Robert?
Yeah, Stanley Booth's book.
Oh, Stanley Booth. Yep, Up and Down. Is it Up and Down or what's it called?
True Adventures of the Rolling Stones. And another good book too to read about the '72 tour is Robert Greenfield's Exile on Main Street. Again, I'll keep plugging these because you can get some good information out there, and also I think that the big memory for me about that '72 tour. And you have to remember that when I was younger, like a lot of us, we didn't get a lot of material. And I certainly do remember seeing the Stones in '81, '82 with the Tattoo You tour. And that was on television, on a version of MTV that we had here. So you had these big, huge stadiums and stages and Mick running from one end to the other end. Then when I finally got a copy of this DVD here, Ladies and Gentlemen, the Rolling Stones, which came out, I think, on DVD about 2010, 2012. It's interesting when you consider the size of the stage. It's interesting because Carl said they went to a more professional stage, but the stage in that DVD compared to what they're currently performing on is remarkable, isn't it?
That was in Dallas, Texas, was it? That DVD?
Yeah.
Dallas. Okay. Yeah, it was a small stadium, eh? A small stage. Sorry.
Yeah, small stage, tight together. And there's a couple of observations, because we are a guitar-based kind of musical kind of show. When the first song, Brown Sugar, so you have this vision of Keith playing a Telecaster. He's playing his '59 Stratocaster.
That's right. So the Tele was being flirted with, but it wasn't a consistent part of it wasn't his main acts, as it would be in later shows.
Yeah. And I think the interesting situation for us, Carl, is that if you look at that '69 tour, they were using Ampegs, and we've spoken about this before. They had a wall of Ampegs behind them, and in '72 they had Ampegs again. So those amps must be critical to that tone, because in the course of me doing a bit of research over the last week, and again, YouTube is great, isn't it? You've got these guys uplifting these soundboards from Stones gigs from '71, '72, '73. It's bloody good, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I mean, and what I like about those bootlegs is you get to see how human these Stones are, because there's some great shows and there's some pretty average shows.
Yeah.
And Keith was playing his Black Gibson as well on that tour, wasn't he?
Not much. He was using, is that the Black Beauty, the custom?
Yeah.
No, I don't think so. I think he was using mainly his '59 Les Paul and the Tele.
Okay.
Yeah, mainly. So I just want to go to the chat. So pretty stark stages in the Gimme Shelter movie too. Yeah, absolutely. And even more starker and bizarre, I suppose, is that stage at Altamont.
Yeah, funny, because I've read quite a few books in relation to that '69 tour, and they kind of said that Altamont was basically the death of the hippie era. And
Yeah.
and the 70s was the start of the. So when we think of the 60s, we think more of pot and LSD and peace and love, the hippie dream, 72 tour, like you mentioned before, was a rock star, superstar, jet setting, cocaine, booze fueled decade, really. A different sort of atmosphere. Those 69 kids were 3 years older. So, we're dealing with grown-ups.
30 shows in 3 months. That was the USA Canadian leg. That's pretty intense, isn't it?
A lot of work.
There's a couple of interesting things that I've dug out too over the last couple of days, and maybe some of our Canadian friends might know a little bit about this. But in July, I didn't realise this, but around July, when Keith got arrested for punching a photographer, one of the reasons why they were late for a gig. I think there was a Boston gig. Some Canadian Quebec separatists blew up a truck that had their Ampeg amps in it.
Did not know that.
Nor did I. So if anyone's, we got a couple of Canadians watching, if they know anything about that, and I did cheat. I jumped on Google too, and I Googled the 72 tour, and it's interesting to see how many arrests were made. There were quite a few riots leading up to a couple of the gigs.
Yeah, well, it just goes to show you that when the Stones were in town, it was a big deal.
Brought everybody out.
Yeah. Yeah. The Bad Boys continued. One of my memory.
What's happened to Carl?
Do it.
What was that? Sorry, mate, you froze. I missed what you said. Sorry, buddy.
A memory etched in my mind of that 72 tour is Keith doing Happy.
Oh, yeah.
And Mick doing the backup vocals and the band just sounding really good in the horn section. You could just tell that their confidence just went to another level.
Do you think that confidence comes because you're playing pretty much a solid set pretty intensely night after night? You're not having a lot of time off, so you're becoming familiar with the material, so you're not nervous like you probably initially are. You know the chords, where the chords are, you know where the drum fill is going to come in, so does that bring out a bit of confidence in these guys, do you think?
Yeah. Well, the 69 tour, the biggest banquet was recorded a year earlier. And of experimentation, but with the 72 tour, it was Let It Bleed, then Sticky Fingers and Exile, just back to back classics. Not a whole lot of downtime, and they were just running really hot. Just running really because play of hear about that tour. So and it was just the start of Mick. You there? When we think of Mick on that 72 tour and this famous rhinestone gear, his black hair and that grey bit of stripiness there. It's Aerosmith got a lot from that, didn't they? Aerosmith, yeah. And even all those 80 bands, Guns N' Roses, and that 72 tour was started a whole image.
Oh yeah, absolutely, and I think we should be grateful that we've got, you know, a great film like Ladies and Gentlemen, the Rolling Stones, to document that, because and if we didn't have this information, it would just be some of the music that we would have, and you wouldn't have that whole visual aspect of the band to give us that roundedness that fans really want to see. What's interesting though, Carl, is Cocksucker Blues. I've never seen that all the way through. There's snippets of it on YouTube. Have you seen that movie complete?
It was basically just something's happened to my phone.
Yeah, well, we can't see you, but we can hear you.
Here we go. It's a problem. People texting.
Oh,
Here
okay.
I am.
Yeah. Yep.
I read up about that. Well, the song was basically sent to Decca Records and discussed, I think, getting out of their contract.
Yeah.
So it was, and then they had the movie attached to it. I think that documentary was just called that because of the song. It was just very, outrageous. But that it showed you the excess, didn't it? Of the, it showed you the cocaine and the girls, and it had Tina Turner on there, and just showed you in the big Los Angeles house and just living the life, eh?
Yeah, apparently, I haven't seen it, but apparently there's a clip there of a girl pinging up, and and when the Stones saw it, they canned it. But there's a guy in Wellington on Trade Me, which is like eBay for our friends in North America, who's selling a copy, but it's $50.
Yeah. I remember I think it's the EP. It's 3 songs, and it shows you a cop and a schoolboy, and just pretty decadent.
But yeah. So why don't you think the Stones, comfortable now in their debauched legacy, why don't you think they would want to release? Why aren't they releasing that that film?
I imagine it's probably censorship. It's probably wouldn't get through the whatever the criteria is for mainstream music or documentaries or movies.
You're kidding me. In 2018, where there's basically no censorship.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe someone else owns it. Maybe they don't own the rights. Who knows? Yeah, I don't know. It's only about 45 minutes long.
There's another good book. There's another good book actually that comes to my mind, and I don't have a physical copy of it. I have a digital copy. It's called 72, The Rolling Stones. It's got a whole lot of photos by a guy called Jim Marshall. So you guys, you can check that out, and that's got a lot of the famous photos that Carl was talking about last week, as well as Ethan Russell's photos, which Ethan Russell was famous for taking that photo. And Ethan Russell, incidentally, Carl, is a member of our Facebook group too, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, we remember the pictures of Keith next to his amp with a bottle of Jack Daniels.
Yeah.
The picture of Keith next to Patient Please, Drug Free America Comes First with his Coke emblem.
Awesome.
A lot of great photos, eh?
Awesome.
Walking down the flight of stairs from their plane
with his doctor's bag.
Yeah. And not to mention the acting. They were having a lot of fun, weren't they? They had, playing cards and jamming on the plane, and
That was the first time they had a plane, didn't they? They didn't have a plane in '69.
No.
So that was
So
the
they hit
first
the big
tour.
time.
That was the first tour. The 72 tour.
Yeah, and then I found out from 69 to 81, they strategically did all these tours every 3 years. So 69, 72, 75, 78, 81.
So that gives them a bit of time to be creative, record an album, tour other parts of the world, and then hit America, hit the big time, the big show.
Yeah, I'd love to know. I mean, you'd know this. I don't. I mean, do you make more money selling an album, or you make more money touring?
Well, initially, I thought they were making more money touring. Certainly with the Beatles, anyway. The Beatles and the Rolling Stones, that they had to tour. And in my research of doing Exile on Main Street, you know, they recorded the album. They'd get a little bit of money because they owned the record company then, didn't they? But most of the money was on the tour. In fact, I can't remember. You might be able to, because I don't have. When I was Googling, the American leg of the tour, translated to US dollars, currently would have been about 27 million just for that 3-month period. A lot of money. Is Carl frozen again?
That's a lot of dough. You're freezing too. Yeah, I don't know what's. Is it the signal's down?
Pretty warped song, that Cocksucker Blues. Yeah, Cocksucker. Yeah. Look, one day if I get a cheap copy of it, Arvin, I'll buy it, but I'm not going to pay $50 for it. Nah, it's not. I don't think it's worth it. But yeah, interesting though. Interesting that they were touring every 3 years. They had that worked out really well, didn't they?
Yeah, I mean, it's like any arrangement. It's a business arrangement. I mean, obviously they love the music, but when you sign up to an album deal, you've got to perform. Obviously, perform business-wise and perform music-wise. And
so, what happened to that guy Capote that was on the tour, who wrote First Blood? What I didn't know anything about him being on that tour until I did some research. He left halfway because he was a boozer or something, couldn't handle it.
Is this the famous author?
Truman Capote.
Yeah. Is it the same guy?
Yeah, apparently.
Yeah, I don't know much about him. I mean, there's so many people that came in that circle that went in and went out. So I just can't keep up with them all.
Yeah, apparently he was brought on to write some expose. You know, that was I suppose the web back then was, you know, to get these journalists with some credentials that were going to write these great and interesting exposés about what the band's doing, and interestingly, one of the great mediums that they have, film, that they don't release.
Yeah. So, I don't know what to make of it. Yeah, no, it's an important tour. Let's face it, it's an important tour because, I mean, we've talked about this before. I mean, everybody likes to be at the top. No one likes to fail. So the Stones would have to prove themselves because there's a lot there, especially the early 70s. So yeah, they had to perform in more ways than one.
Well, the fact that they were hitting 30 certainly gave them some emphasis to make it work, didn't they? Because rock and roll, they were probably the first guys, the giants in rock and roll, to turn 30 and be at the top of their game.
Yeah. I mean, there's that famous interview with I think around that same time. The guy that interviewed Jimi Hendrix, his name is someone David, a talk show host in the evening. Do you see yourself doing this at 70, Mick? and Mick actually prophetically says, "Yeah, I do. A little bit like Marlene Dietrich, the old European theatre performer, vaudeville performer, whatever they call them." And here he is today, 72, still touring. So, Bruce was saying, mockingly or sarcastically, maybe this is your last tour, or maybe you got one more in you, But the Stones keep rolling. So it's almost like actually started to enjoy getting asked those questions because they weren't going to give up. They loved it. Mick and Keith are best friends. So much creativity. Hot band, rhythm section that was just tight as a tack. Never going to go away. It was
and it was the tour. I think the 72 tour was the tour that reinforced Keith in a position of being a guitar god. Certainly he was known as a great guitarist up until 72, but I would argue that was the tour that interestingly put him as a rhythm guitarist into the category of a rock, of a guitar god, that rock and roll now celebrates. It's interesting that he grew into that position pretty well, because we said last week that Exile on Main Street was the album that gave him his own unique sound, didn't it? And then he could take that sound out on tour. And one thing though we didn't talk about though last week or the week before is the role of Mick Taylor. And his role in balancing out that sound for that album. And certainly when I was listening to some of these soundboard clips, gosh, mate, some of those, like Brown Sugar, some of those fills he's playing during Brown Sugar, they're phenomenal.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned Brown. 69 tour, they obviously open up every show with Jumping Jack Flash, but the 72 tour was synonymous with Brown Sugar.
Yeah,
and I don't care who you are or if you like music or not. Everybody knows that intro to Brown Sugar. And you're exactly right, Mick Taylor. Obviously wonderful on the 69 tour with the slide and everything, but he just got even a bit more clever with the 72 tour with all those beautiful country licks. Solos on Dead Flowers, and you mentioned the fills and Brown Sugar, and let's not forget they continued the Midnight Rambler, and just a lot of clever playing. Just he went to another level as well. Mick Taylor again.
And all he was doing was just playing a Gibson's straight into amps. No pedals.
Yeah, he's an interesting guy, because here he is doing all these wonderful country licks, and a lot of that blues sound, and especially and when I mention the country, is there pictures of there's one picture of him I remember with this massive afro. He's playing a Stratocaster, but 9 times out of 10 he always had that SG or a Les Paul, didn't he?
If it's not a Gibson, that Gibson 335, it was a Les Paul or an SG. Yeah, absolutely, he's a Gibson man.
It's just but once again, the Stones are clever. And we'll just talk about Brian real quick. It's hard to have a 2 Gibson sound. One, because they're both quite a thick, thuddy sound. So with Keith going to the Strats and the Tallys, it was a higher pitch to the Gibson humbucker. So when they were touring with Brian back in '65, Brian was smart enough to get that Vox, which is basically a Stratocaster, really, single pickups. So Mick took the role of the humbuckers, and Keith went back to, well, but was Keith Strat had the single pickups, but the Telly had the humbucker, right?
Yeah, had a PAF in it, and so when he was playing it, both pickups were working. But he says in his book the only reason why he put that humbucker in was to give it more tonal, to give it more sound depth, as opposed to what he was currently getting with the Telecaster. More of a landscape. So yeah, I don't necessarily think that it was a conscious sound thing that they said, oh, you play Gibsons and I'm going to play Fenders, because I think when they're playing through those Ampegs, they're going to make anything from what I've heard sound pretty crunchy, aren't they?
Yeah, and obviously a preference too, but that's another discussion entirely in itself. And
that's why I was blown away so much when I saw Brown Sugar on that, ladies and gentlemen, the Rolling Stones, when Keith's playing a Stratocaster, because it blew me away, because it sounds pretty good. And if you guys want to check it out, you can go to Spotify. It's they've got an audio version of that, and it sounds, I can't tell the difference between listening to that and a song where he's playing the Telly. Maybe it is all in the fingers.
Yeah. Well, more than likely, he's probably on volume, probably at number 7 on his amp. But wonderful sound, wonderful. What such a big tour. And let's not forget all the other guys. We mentioned Mick, Bill and Charlie doing a great job. Bobby Keys, Jim Price, Stevie Wonder was on that tour. Who were some of the backing guys? They had a bit of a. Who was some of the opening acts? You don't know?
No, I just know Tina Turner and B.B. King from Get Your Ya-Ya's Out. Well, you just said it, didn't you? Stevie Wonder.
Yeah, but it's been a while since I watched the DVD, but I think the encore, they had quite a few people on that stage.
Oh, this one here.
Yeah,
no, it's only the band. There's no encore with other artists on this DVD.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know.
I must have seen it. Must have been a YouTube video. Yeah. I just love that tour because it seemed to never end as well.
Well, yeah, no, I think if you know rock and roll and you're studying rock and roll and you know and you read other artists' accounts of what they were doing that were performing in the 70s, a lot of them will bring it back to that 72 Stones tour of being really important. If they didn't see the tour, they certainly heard about it, and that was all part of that whole mystique that the Stones had, didn't they? They were giants at capitalizing on anything that they did.
Absolutely, and let's not forget, even though, I mean, it was obviously a 2-year tour, it was Mick Taylor's last tour.
Bit of a shame.
So really was, yeah, because he could have. Be interesting to see what would have happened if he kept going. He's one of those guys that couldn't be he thought he was. I wouldn't say he didn't think he was too talented. I think he just felt limited within that band. But
yeah. Well, we all know that, and Crossfire Hurricane answered any doubts that we had or any theories. You know, he said he left the band because he developed a heroin addiction. Had he not developed a heroin addiction, maybe he would have stayed.
Yeah, I just always thought that he left because he felt creatively limited, and he'd been talking to Jack Bruce or some of these guys and wanted to do a jazz rock album. Did not know that.
No, I can that theory, because his family obviously was clever enough to realize that his family was an important thing for him, and getting clean, and obviously looking at all these other guys when he was touring around the world that were on the smack, he realized, holy cow, you know. And he was in a financial position where he could pull out, and obviously he's an artist, so he was going to go and do something. But anything that he did after the Stones was, you know, sad. As much as I'm a Mick Taylor nut, anything he did after that didn't measure up to what he did in the Stones.
Well, I mean, he's not a singer and he's not a songwriter. He's a wonderful guitar player.
Yeah.
So he's a band member.
Yeah, you've hit the nail on the head. Some guys just have to realize who they are.
Yeah. He's an employee.
Yeah.
Which is okay.
Yeah. I read an interesting article about him when he was talking about guitars. One of the reasons why he took Gibson guitars is because he liked the way that they could clean up and play like really, really clean. It was a versatile guitar. And then obviously turn the volume up, fiddle around with his amp, and get that crunchy tone that they all heard that Clapton had when he was doing that Blues Breakers album. Versatile guitars, aren't they? The SG or the Gibsons generally. Well, the SG is a Les Paul though, isn't it? Technically.
Different shape.
Yeah. So interesting though that he can say that he could get a nice clean tone and get a rocking tone.
Yeah. Well, that's the great thing about the Gibsons is, as we know, they get a rock, a bit of a crunch, and they get a wonderful jazzy tone too, which is jazz, which means clean. But the other thing I was going to mention too was with the 72 tour, you see Mick Taylor becoming a bit more extroverted, talking to the girls and rolling a joint, and you can still see he was quite a shy guy. But I remember a few clips from years ago, and I watched that DVD. It was a document, might have been Cocksucker Blues or that one, but it showed you just loosening up a little bit on and off the stage. But I mean, he wasn't built to hang out with that machine. I mean, obviously the Keith and it's like a guy from a private school hanging out with a guy from the wrong side of town. Eventually something has to give.
Oh, I'm glad that he just he managed to put his family first and realize that and knock it on the head, and he did pretty well while Keith was still trying to measure it out, wasn't he? Keith was still on it for a few more years after that, wasn't he? I think Keith's I think the busts that was it Canada in 78 or 70, that's what scared him when they realized, oh holy cow, he may not be able to tour again.
Right. 72 I guess he was in the middle of obviously his party favor phase of all the substances, but after that tour, I guess when he came off the road, it got darker, a lot darker. You could see the decline too in the albums.
Yes.
Soup, and then obviously It's Only Rock and Roll. Still good songs, but not quite the magic they had. So that's another good thing. And in a way, the 72 tour was, I guess, the apex of creativity and energy all at once.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I'd agree with that. I would say that it didn't get it sort of flattened out until probably 81 with Tattoo You. That certainly became phenomenal, didn't it?
But I remember a friend of mine giving me a couple of bootleg DVDs of the 75 tour, and it just was horrible. It was just flat. It was just too much stage antics, just a circus.
Yeah, I've got it, and I don't like it. I've got a copy. They released it, Stones from the Vault a couple of years ago, and I have to say it's a harsh watch.
Well, Keith was in, I guess, he was fully pretty much in bondage with the heroin altogether. And then obviously Ron was the new hired gun, learning all those new songs, and he was jumping around like a bozo. It was a bit of a circus.
Yeah. And
so
what's the highlight for you for that 72 tour? Is there one item or one piece of news or one thing that stands out for you?
I think for me it was, I guess, the Stones' ultimate dream, which was young English boys, obviously big blues fans, fans of American music, and it came to its full fruition with the 72 tour, because all of a sudden there were some American guys in their band, and they were like Sweet Virginia and sounding like Southern rockers. I think it came full circle in a way. From being fans of it to actually being respected, giving America back what they loved. Obviously touring America with some American guys in their band, Sweet Virginia, all down the line, just coming off a good album, just full speed. It was them at full speed. Just an engine in full motion. Keith pretty much cemented his open tuning by then. And to this day, I think that 72 tour, his sound is still relative today from that tour.
Oh, absolutely. I would say that the standout for me, obviously you've got the album Exile on Main Street, and then you've got, we're lucky to have this DVD which encapsulates it all. The sound's pretty good. It's got some good interviews, and you see a band performing at their pinnacle. A couple of little other interesting observations. So you've got the amp, and you've got their guitar lead, and the guitar lead, if you have a look, the guitar lead isn't laying on the ground. The guitar lead's like about half a meter off the floor. So they're not playing with long leads. They've actually got them hooked in, and they're walking out, and there's no safety aspect there. It's just
wow.
Plug it in and plug in and play kind of. Yeah, that's what I love about it. That grunge.
Well, there wasn't not a whole lot of effects, eh? Maybe a wah-wah, no pedals, pretty raw still, eh? Pretty raw.
I'd go go as far as to say, mate, that there was no effects.
Wow.
That they were just relying solely on the volume and tone on their guitars, and the gain that they had on their amps. Geniuses. You look at some of these guys that, and this is no disrespect to guys playing in pub bands, but you know, I went and saw a band recently, and they're on a little stage, and the guitar player's got 4 guitars. He's got a pedal board that's got about 15 pedals, and an amp that takes up half the stage. And I'm thinking, you know, what's the point?
Yeah. He's obviously got a tone for every song.
And it wasn't Carl,
and
too.
Unfortunately, the pedal.
It wasn't Carl.
Yeah. Yeah, and continuing on from their '69 tour with the set list I looked at previously, you know, big raunchy intro song, a Chuck Berry song. They did Bye Bye Johnny, which is quite neat on that tour. A couple of acoustics. They did The Love in Vain, The Midnight Rambler. Would have been a great show. Seriously, would have been high energy.
You can't get always what you want with no backing singers.
Wow. Yeah, let's turn my laptop on. I just want to look at that set list. If it's going to work.
Well, I'll read the songs off the DVD. So you got Brown Sugar, Bitch, Gimme Shelter,
Yeah,
Dead Flowers, Happy, Tumbling Dice, Love in Vain, Sweet Virginia, You Can't Always Get What You Want, All Down the Line, Midnight Rambler,
yeah,
Bye Bye Johnny, which you mentioned, Rip This Joint, Jumping Jack Flash, and Street Fighting Man. What a set list.
wow. So continue on from the '69 tour with some great nuggets from Sticky and Exile. Yeah, unbelievable.
What was the set list for? What was the set list for '75? Have you got that handy? Is that on your computer?
Yeah, well, my modem's going through my cell phone, so my laptop's won't pick up the signal.
Oh, okay, it's fine. Maybe we can do a comparison of that next week.
Yeah. I do remember the '75 tour being a bit funny because they tried some songs and it just didn't work, like Full to Cry, and yeah, just didn't quite work. Obviously, they're Star. We talked about that before, Star, that sort of thing. But so I'd be interesting to hear though, just some snippets from the books that you read. Was Parsons on that tour?
No,
he wasn't. Okay.
So you're right. So '75, you got Honky Tonk Woman, All Down the Line, If You Can't Rock Me, Star, Give Me Shelter, Ain't Too Proud to Beg, You Gotta Move, Can't Always Get What You Want, Happy, Tumbling Dice, It's Only Rock and Roll, Do, Fingerprint File, Angie, Wild Horses, This Life, sung by Billy Preston, Outer Space, led by Billy Preston, Brown Sugar, Midnight Rambler, Rip This Joint, Street Fighting Man, and Jumping Jack Flash, and the encore was Sympathy for a Devil.
Right. Because they didn't do Sympathy on the '72 tour. They were spooked from that '69. It took 5 years for them to do it again, eh? 6
That's
years.
correct. I'm glad you mentioned that.
Yeah. It's yeah.
Was that the song they were playing when Meredith got stabbed?
Yeah, Meredith Hunter. That was, yeah. The 72 tour almost was, I think they'd learnt a lot from what to do and what not to do. So that was a distant memory at that point, 69 tour.
Yeah, I think they just probably were quite happy to blank. We'll just blank that.
Yeah.
But fans like us, no, we won't let you blank it.
Nah. And so Mick was obviously married. Anita was with him.
Oh, did they take their partners on that tour, on the 72 tour? Did they travel with them?
I think so. And wasn't there some famous? There were some famous photos of them on Los Angeles on Rodeo Drive in the car.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. That was with Graham Parsons, wasn't it? Or, yeah. Yeah, they had a lot.
Well, were they staged photos? I'm pretty sure Graham wasn't actually touring with them. I could be wrong. Maybe
Well,
people
obviously
in the chat or that's some research. I was pretty. Yeah, I haven't come across anything that said that he was touring with them.
What the Stones did, because obviously they'd have a few breaks in between shows, is they would catch up with a lot of people. So,
well, that was the tour that Bob Dylan said the Rolling Stones were creating a cosmic consciousness or something, wasn't he? Something like that.
Yes. Which was.
What does that mean?
What is he? Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what that means.
No, I don't know if Graham was. He probably. Well, look, yeah, maybe he did hang out with them. But it's not something that I can say, mate. Well, wow, because why didn't he? Well, why didn't he jump on stage and do a number with them?
Don't know. Good. That's a great point. Because we see now with bands, it's quite common for them to have someone come on stage.
Yep.
But Stones, the Glimmer Twins were pretty, not control freaks, but they were pretty, did many people jump on? It wasn't until the Steel Wheels tour that people started to jump on a little bit, Eric, Axel.
I think Eric played with them though on a couple of songs on 75. I do remember reading.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's when he was recovering from his own issues.
Oh wow! Where he swapped the dust for the alcohol.
Yeah, I'm just having a quick glance through Keith's book to see what he's saying about Graham. He's talking about the Sunset Strip here. No.
Actually, you've inspired me. I might actually revisit that tour a little bit and read. I've got a book somewhere of the 72 tour. I've got to read it up again. I spent so much time reading up about the 69 tour. 72 tour for me was glossed over a little bit.
Yeah. I look, like I said before, I don't think we don't have to evaluate the Stones tours and rank them one from the other. I I certainly can't. You know. Having said that, though, we both agreed and said that the 75 tour was pretty bad.
Yeah.
But the 69 tour and that 72 tour and also Brussels that you mentioned in the introduction, that was 73. Is that correct, or 71?
73.
73. So, you know, that's phenomenal. We've heard that on YouTube. It'd be interesting if they and hopefully we might be lucky and they might be able to release that. But yeah, we don't have to get into fights about you know, what tour is best or whether or not Mick Taylor is better than Brian Jones. I have my preferences, and I suppose one of the lessons I've learnt over the last couple of years is, you know, I've mentioned it before to you, I'm a Van Halen fan, and I'll be on some Van Halen groups and I'll make a comment about Sammy Hagar, who I particularly enjoy over and above David Lee Roth. But I'll make a comment, but I'll never put down David Lee Roth, ever. And then you just get this barrage of haters, of people that just say, Sammy sucks. What do you know about music? And I'm going, so you're a Van Halen fan. You say you're a Van Halen fan, and yet you can just put a fence up and say,
but immature.
And say, no, this is not it, and this is it. It's the same thing with the Stones. You know, I've met a couple of guys that are just only Brian Jones nuts, Stones up into Brian Jones, and I can appreciate that. But to turn around and say, you know, that everything that the Rolling Stones did after that was rubbish, well, that's your preference, but jeepers, half the world doesn't agree with you.
Well, it's the whole idea of being in a band. You've got different moving parts all coming as one. You know, not one guy is better than the other. The other thing I was going to mention, though, was I think why I give a bit more credence to the 69 tour, and you can't help but not, because you had an official released live album. When was the next live album that the Stones released officially as a distributed record?
81. Or that in the 80s, wasn't it?
Still, Let's Spend the Night Together an official? It was a DVD. It was a VHS, but was it actual? It was an actual album, wasn't it? It was.
Yeah.
So it was another 10 years before they released another live album. So about that particular DVD is there wasn't any live footage of that particular tour.
Yeah. Look. We've got Todd Flowers here. G'day, Todd. Yeah. Look. I agree with you. I love the 79 tour because of, you know, get you. Yeah. It's just phenomenal. But yeah. Don't ask me to choose. I'm not going to choose.
Oh no. Well, yeah, it's just interesting. I would have thought that every big tour that probably released a little live album, but it's probably a bit too much. I'm not sure. I don't know the understanding behind it.
Yeah, I think 72 for me certainly captured a band at their peak. Just like, you know, and I think that's one of the great things about our community is that you can have conversations with people who are informed and have a good opinion, an understanding opinion, and a respectful opinion can turn around and say, well, no, actually, you know, for me it was 75, and I'd love to hear someone tell me why they think 75 is a great tour. I'd love to hear. Tell me why 75 is a great tour. Don't call me a dickhead because I don't like 75 or I don't rate it. That's not going to... How does that work?
Well, I think what would have happened with the 75 tour was it's almost like... It'd almost be like the last part of the night of the party where it just got too much. You know, so the 69 was the start of the party. The 72 tour was when everybody was peaking, and then 75 was the fade out. Time to go home, boys.
Yeah. I you know what? That's brilliant. I think I'm going to quote that from now on. I'm going to, yeah, the crest, the wave building, the crest of the wave, and then the white water just coming in onto the beach. You're off the board, buddy.
Yep. Because they were doing, yeah. It took a lot of rebuilding after that 75 tour for them to come back again, you know, because Some Girls was supposed to be a clean album, not clean guitar, but cleaner use.
Yeah.
So yeah. No, I mean, no, I appreciate the show because I like I said, I want to revisit that 72 tour again and read up about it.
Awesome.
I know of it because of Exile and the awesome photography, and obviously I think you gave me that DVD or put me onto it, but there's some good stuff to be had in there, some good stuff.
Oh, I love it. I love it. You know, the interview with Dick Cavett, and it's interesting.
That's the guy. That's the guy, Dick Cavett.
Yeah. So, and you know, he's
who asked,
and he's asking Mick some questions, and there's a plate of pills being handed around, and Dick asks Mick, "What's these pills?" And Mick turns around and says, "They're vitamins."
The what?
Vitamin pills.
Yeah, because Dick had a good sense of humor. I that's when he asked that question, would you guys still be doing this in your 60s or 70s? And, you know, lo and behold, here we are, still doing it.
Yeah.
That was a good interview. Dick Cavett, that was the name I was trying to find. Yeah. The older guy with the white hair, in the New York.
Yeah. The New York style. Yeah. But yeah, I think for rock and roll, you know, certainly it was the benchmark, and I think even Led Zeppelin themselves learned a lot from that tour, didn't they?
Yeah.
Because they went on and they became the Giants in '75, didn't they? That '75 tour that they had was just phenomenal.
Well, you can see the comparisons. You can see, for example, the Gibson Les Paul, the clothing they wore. Jimmy Page wore something similar to Keith and Mick, you know, that black kind of suit. Not a suit like a business suit, but a one zip thing. The plane, the logo.
Yep.
The manager, the pre-warm-up show, the Jack Daniels, the bottle. You saw Jimmy slugging on that, didn't you?
Yep.
Keith was doing that in '72. So obviously Jimmy Page is in another stratosphere when it comes to guitar. You know, that you can't help but love the rawness of the Stones, and the originality of them too. The guys doing it at the start. You know.
Can I ask you a question? Seeing we're talking about Jimmy Page.
Yeah.
What when you think of Jimmy Page, what guitar do you think of when you associate a guitar with Jimmy Page?
Primarily the Les Paul.
Me too. Interesting that Fender are coming out with the signature Telecaster, a Jimmy Page signature Telecaster.
With all the work?
Oh, we don't know. We don't know if it's got the dragon on it. Morning, Simon. Good to see you, Simon. Yeah. I don't want to be smart or cynical or anything like that, but you know, money grab is a phrase that comes to my mind because, you know, when I think of Jimmy Page, I think of automatically a Les Paul.
And then his second option would be that beautiful double neck SG.
Yeah. And we all know that first album was recorded on a Tele. I'm not taking anything away from a Tele and that sound that he was getting, but you know, rock and roll's about you know, more than just the sound. It's the image, it's the photos, and Jimmy Page looked pretty cool with those Les Pauls.
Oh, absolutely. He was. I mean, yeah. Yeah. That song remains the same. DVD is a work of art. That's another
brilliant.
subject entirely altogether.
Oh, it's brilliant. It's phenomenal.
Yeah, I mean, just the sound, and once again, just three guys really: a drummer, a bass player, and a guitar player. What's Robert doing? Just singing.
I think you and I mentioned this when Simon was on the show when we were talking about Led Zeppelin. I said to Simon, I didn't know until recently, like within the last 10 years, 15 years, that first Led Zeppelin album was recorded with a tele. I certainly remember seeing photos and pictures over the years of him playing that tele with that violin bow. And you knew that some songs obviously he was playing a tele, but I didn't realize that whole album was just recorded on a tele. It's phenomenal. Phenomenal.
But yeah, and then the what's the word? The growth from the first to second albums is amazing as well. I mean, obviously the Gibson became his mainstay, but the songs and everything got a bit more. Yeah. No. We'll have to talk about Led Zeppelin one day.
Oh yeah, well that's certainly within the scope of our program, British Blues. they were certainly certainly giants. Before we knock off, and we should knock off soon, I watched It Might Get Loud again recently, a couple of weeks ago, for about the third or fourth time. There's some pretty good stuff in that DVD. Jimmy Page is saying some good stuff.
Yeah, if it wasn't for him, the DVD wouldn't be worth watching.
I'm not going to argue with
he's like, yeah, because those guys, when he did that Whole Lot of Love, those guys looked at him like looking at Thor or looking at a Greek god.
They shat their pants, mate. That's what they were doing. They had to sort of wiggle off to the toilet after that performance.
Yeah. There's just multiple. There's lots of little snippets of Jimmy. Like there's one where he was bloated in his face, wore a suit that was 10 times too big.
Yeah.
He was jamming with Aerosmith on stage. Yeah. Train Kept the Rolling.
Yeah.
Have you seen that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Just it's a little skinny guy with these really narrow shoulders, and he's just a he's a giant. Those English guys, I don't know what they put in the water or the soil. Is Simon still listening?
Yeah, well, Simon's just made a comment here saying Page is the keeper of the flame. No arguments. No arguments. But having said that, though, I just when I think of Page, when I think of Page, I think of a Les Paul. When I think of Clapton, I think of a Stratocaster. When I think of B.B. King, I think of a Gibson. When I think of Stevie Ray Vaughan, it's a Stratocaster. It's just, you can't help it. When I think of Simon, I think of a Chapman.
Yeah. Well, the other thing is, unfortunately, it's probably the last decade, if not, hopefully maybe two more, but Jimmy Page is finally releasing a book along with Eric Clapton, a book, is like the final chapter really in their lives. I read about that in the Waikato Times today.
There's a biography that came out by Brad Tolinsky a couple of years ago on Page. It's not bad. It's okay. But you want the biography. You want with the ghostwriter. You want Jimmy Page sitting there, you know, telling the guy what happened. And hopefully he's going to do it soon.
I think he is. I think I read somewhere that Jimmy Page is finally sitting down, because he's been quite a guarded guy. He's finally going to release, you know, excerpts and memoirs and bits of diaries. Really? And I think so. Yeah, I think so.
Wow. Well, he's going to be a millionaire. He's going to be a millionaire overnight again.
Possibly. Today, they're calling him the survivor, talking about his Ferrari crashes and his substance abuse. He's authorized another book, apparently. Yeah. So yes, even though we don't see them in their 30s touring, we've got all their music still. But it's great that they're still alive, still telling a great story, and we know that what they're about to put out while they're still alive is the real deal.
So who's putting the books out? Did you say Page and who?
Eric Clapton.
I picked this one up today. This is just been released today. It's by Philip Norman, who's a prolific writer. He's done a best-selling biography on McCartney. But what's interesting about this one here is that Philip Norman has done his homework. He's read reviews about his other biographies where he hasn't got experts independently from him to fact check the small details that fans know. So I'm looking forward to reading this, because on some of his other biographies, he's made some glaringly bad mistakes.
Oh, wow. That's not good. That is not good at all.
Like getting dates wrong and and events and yeah. So it'll be interesting to see what but anything that Page writes is going to be a top seller.
I hope that what I read is not fabrication. I hope it comes to fruition. I really hope that we get I mean, obviously, there's been books written about Led Zeppelin, the band.
Yeah.
But Jimmy Page himself, he's been quite a he's been a bit of a recluse, hasn't he? Very guarded.
Well, the one interview that he gave in '75 is one that that everybody talks about, which in a Guitar World magazine, it's probably the only decent interview he's given where he talks about his gear and everything. He hasn't done anything since, other than that movie a couple of years ago, that DVD a couple of years ago, where he talks about a couple of things.
Is that right? So nothing. He's never been one to openly talk about himself or give interviews freely.
Well, I'm not a Page nut, so you know, so I can't offer an opinion other than what I've just picked up over the years, where people just offer a couple of opinions and I just latch onto them, but I haven't done any research myself. Yep. There's a YouTube videos of Jimmy doing a talk at the Oxford Union. Yeah, Hammer of the Gods. Yeah, I've got that, Simon. That's not bad. It's not bad. Yeah. So what's the Oxford Union videos like, Arvin? Are they any good? I just want to. Can I find that 75 interview? I can't find somewhere. I need a library. Oh, here we go. So the Page interview or from 1977. My vocation is more in composing than anything else, orchestrating the guitar like an army. So that's a Page, Jimmy Page, famous interview from 77, Carl.
Yeah, I remember reading up some of his interviews, and when you mentioned that quote, another quote, he said, I wanted all of Led Zeppelin's creativity in a vice grip. I wanted to be in control of everything. So be interesting. He's an interesting case study. I'd like to read up about him as well. So
okay, well,
so yeah.
I'm going to recommend that you do what Arvin's telling us and go and check out the Oxford Union videos on YouTube, because he's saying, yeah, they're pretty good. Lots of information.
Awesome. Yeah.
And Simon's saying he doesn't do many interviews, keeps the mystic. Absolutely. Oxford Uni is a high-level history of... Wow. Okay. I better go and eat some dinner, guys, and I need to go and watch these DVDs, these videos.
See you guys.
Awesome. Thanks, Todd, Simon, Jim. Thank you for jumping in. Arvin, our good friend. Jimmy T. Who else have we got here? Fender Guru, Todd, Simon, Jimmy, and Carl. And what's your cat's name, man? I saw your cat walk across your screen before. What's your pussy cat?
He doesn't have a name. I just take care of him.
Pussy.
I don't know.
We'll call him Pussy.
Yeah. No, he's all right. Cool, guys. I really enjoyed the show. So yeah, we pretty much said everything we need to say about the 72 tour. Just wow, the engine in full force.
Oh, hold on. Yeah. So the Keith Caster. So Jimmy T. Okay, so the saddle bridge piece that I had wasn't a complete saddle that I need. It's because it came out of a Telecaster that had P90s. So it's not going to fit on here. And that's just me being so inexperienced. I didn't realize that until I took this off and went to go and put the other one on and realized, oh, the pickups actually fit installed in this tailpiece. So what I've done is I've ordered a completely new modern bridge thing, bridge tailpiece where I can put that on. Hopefully that makes sense. But yeah, there's the Keith Caster. I did some more reliquing. I've darkened the neck a little bit, and I also took off a bit of gloss off the head. I don't know if that's going to be. It's probably not going to show up on the. But you can see there.
Have you thought about
where I've just?
I know you don't smoke cigarettes.
Yeah. No, there's a cigarette.
Have you thought about
that there? See that there? See that there? That's.
Oh, okay.
But it's a work in progress.
A
work in progress. You can see I've knocked it around a bit, and yeah, the Keith Caster. So I'll let you guys know when I get that bridge, and I intend to do that myself. So yeah, cool. The work continues. Yeah, but I won't be putting the humbucker in. I won't do that. I'll give it to a guy that I know locally and get him to do that. I have to get that done. That's going to be something for next month. Cheers, guys. I'm going to say goodbye, and I'll let Carl say goodbye, and we'll catch you next week.
Yeah, great show once again. Thank you for everybody listening in, and appreciate all the comments as far as the some of the snippets that you've let us into, like the Jimmy Page, and anything else you want to add, just feel free.
Well, that's what we love about it. This is what I love about the community. You know, it's yeah, it's pretty cool. I've been on a couple of YouTube channels the last couple of days, and these are guys that I know, through YouTube who I talk to regularly, and it's just sad sometimes when you see some of the comments that people make, you know, and sometimes you just have to drop a line to someone and say, man, you know, just continue doing what you're doing. Don't pay any attention to the dickheads who make dickhead comments, because invariably they're always going to be there, aren't they?
Well, you're always going to get people that are either opinionated or ignorant or nerdify everything.
Yeah, and you go to their channel and have a look, and they've got nothing.
It's almost like they're old women and nags.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I just think it's more easier for some people just to say a smart ass, hurtful, horrible thing, than you know. Yeah. Anyway, I'm starting to preach, so I'll keep my mouth shut.
All right.
All right. Rock and roll, guys. Cheers and love from New Zealand. Andrew out.
See ya.